What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. The day is finally here. Avatar Fire and Ash is finally out in theaters, and this has been the first time that I've actually been excited to go into an Avatar movie with high expectations. Going into The Way of Water, I really wasn't all that excited because I wasn't the biggest fan of the first film. So going into Fire and Ash, I have been really excited to see what James Cameron was able to do, seeing how he was able to infuse a lot of new ideas into The Way of Water. Hopefully he would be able to do that with the Fire Clan that we have in here. And so this movie takes place about a year after the events of the first film. Jake, Neytiri, and the kids are trying to find their peace on Pandora, settling in with the Water Tribe when a new foe comes in and threatens to kill them all. It goes without saying that the Avatar movies are huge spectacles. You can hand James Cameron the Oscar right now for best visual effects of the year, and I would not have any problems because that's what this movie delivers. There's no denying whether you love or hate this franchise. The visuals on screen are just absolutely beautiful to see, especially on a huge screen. Even when you see it in 3D, the colors just pop. You're invited into this world, and going into Fire and Ash, that's exactly what this movie delivers. It delivers all the spectacles that you expect from an Avatar movie, and it does not disappoint. Every single frame of this movie is just absolutely beautiful to see. It's awe-inspiring, and you can tell that they took their time with all the visual effects. It does feel really weird that this movie comes out 3 years after the last film, but within those 3 years, they definitely took the time with the visual effects, making every single pop. I do love the design of the Fire Tribe. Even though they do look like every single Avatar, the villains' henchmen kind of have a unique look to them, and I really enjoyed the way that they look, the way that they move, what they were trying to convey with those characters. It really does try to do something new, and that is what I really enjoyed about this movie. The fact that this movie is still, like the last one, 3 hours long, which is one of my biggest complaints when it comes down to 3 hour long movies. But if you're able to do them right and keep me engaged, you're going to have me hooked from beginning to end. And what they do with this movie, I enjoyed, but at the same time, kind of wish they were able to do something different. I can see how this movie is Avatar The Way of Water 2.5, because there are familiar beats from the original film, especially when it came down to Jake and his son, the relationship that these two have. It is very familiar to The Way of Water, where you have Jake kind of wanting to ground his son in reality and be that leader that Jake is. However, his son is still holding that weight on his shoulder, how he feels like his brother's death was his fault. So he got a lot of the family conflict that we have in The Way of Water kind of being thrown in here, which I kind of wish it wasn't all too repetitive, but it's just the characters that I'm really engaged with. I really like the family dynamics that we have here between not just Jake, but also with Neytiri, keeping the family safe, keeping the family together, and for the most part, they are together. The first 30 to an hour of this movie is really engaging. I love how they were able to introduce some new things. The way that the villain Van Rang is introduced, she is a formidable foe. When she is introduced, you can see how ruthless and soulless she really is, especially when you get into a little bit of her story where she begged for Awa's help, but Awa wasn't around, so she doesn't believe in Awa's help, and she puts a couple of the kids in that position where she begs the question whether or not Awa is able to help them whenever they're able to call him. And you kind of see that division. You kind of see exactly what this character's motivation is, exactly what she wants to do. So the way that they were able to use her within the first 30 to an hour, I really enjoyed, especially since a lot of the action sequences involving her are some of the biggest highlights of this movie. Aside from the spectacle and the visual effects, her character introduction in this movie was great. I really enjoyed it, and I was really excited to see how we were able to follow this character. However, that's kind of where some of the issues start to run with me. Even though this movie is a beautiful spectacle to see on screen, and I was really enjoying my time for a majority of this movie. After the first hour and we're introduced into the conflict, the villain, and the story, seeing the direction and navigation as to where we're going to be going with this movie, it comes to a screeching halt and the pace starts to slow down so much. Whereas The Way of Water had a really fast-paced speed. It was moving really fast. You were engaged with the story. You were engaged with the characters, the conflict, and everything that was going around. With Fire and Ash, that middle section after the first hour going into preparing us for that third act, everything just comes to a screeching halt, and I kind of wish they were able to keep putting the pedal to the metal, especially when that is when the Way of Water 2.5 issues come to pass. It does feel like we're spending a lot of time with the Water Tribe like we did in Avatar The Way of Water, and it doesn't have that same hook that the Way of Water had. It doesn't have that momentum, especially when a lot of these characters are split up. You have a couple of teams here and there where you have Jake and Quaritch kind of teaming up a little bit. Then you have the kids on their journey. You have the Fire Tribe on their journey. Neytiri is on her solo quest kind of a little bit, and like the Way of Water, she does kind of get sidelined just a little bit. She doesn't really have moments to shine until the third act of the movie. That is when she is more useful. But I do like the way that they were able to build up the relationship between Jake and Spider in this movie, where Neytiri at the beginning of the film still has a really hate on for Spider, especially after the events of The Way of Water and everything that she witnessed Spider doing. The way that they were able to build that relationship up, I kind of started to enjoy that chemistry a little bit more, because we know a little bit more about Spider in here than we did in The Way of Water. Some of it is already rehashed things we had already known, especially when it came down to Kiri's character, played by Sigourney Weaver brilliantly again. Once everybody starts splitting up and they have their own little side journey going on, you don't feel that dynamic as much as you did in the first act of this movie. Once we get into the second act and everybody is just split up and going in different directions, it doesn't have a lot for you to gravitate to. It doesn't have a lot of that connection that The Way of Water had, where you're able to introduce us to this new clan, see how they're able to connect with them and learn their ways. With Fire and Ash, it doesn't really do much of that. And when it came down to the villain of Varang, even though I really loved the way she was introduced and the action sequences that she has between Jake, Neytiri, and everybody else, those moments when she is used brilliantly and she is used great. However, you kind of forget about her throughout the entire movie, because even the movie forgets that she's even supposed to be in this movie. She is missing for a majority of this movie, and I kind of wish they were able to use her sparingly throughout the entire movie as a formidable foe. That is where this runtime kind of feels like a director's cut to Avatar The Way of Water, except we're introducing some new elements here and there. They're just not used as well as they should be, and that is really the biggest bummer that I had going into this movie. Even though I do enjoy Stephen Lang as Quaritch, and he was a great villain in The Way of Water, in here he still brings it. He still has that energy to him. I just wish he was sidelined a little bit and we were using Varang a little bit more in this movie, because she is a very compelling character and you do want to see exactly how she's been able to get out of these situations. But even by the end of the movie and the way they use her in the third act is just really not the best. By the end of the movie, they make her weaker than Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. That is one of the biggest disappointment, because for majority of this movie, it doesn't feel like she has a lot of presence to the film. We're just mostly focusing on the bad guy from The Way of Water and kind of continuing that mission on, instead of putting more focus on the Fire Nation. That's what I like to call them, because I don't remember if they gave them a name like they do with the Water Tribe. But overall, it's a solid movie. It's a beautiful visual to see on screen, and the action sequences are great when they are happening. It's really engaging when the action scenes happen. It's just that middle section where you do start to feel the runtime. And I didn't do this for The Way of Water, but those 3 hours just flew by. With Fire and Ash, I was watching the time to see if it was really close to being over, and it wasn't. It's just a drag to get through, and I kind of wish they scaled back the runtime a little bit more so we would be able to have this movie flow a little bit better and be a little bit more consistent. Give the Fire Nation a better story and more screen time to be a little bit more compelling like they were in the first act, instead of forgetting about them. But overall, it's a solid time. I enjoyed it for what it is. I didn't enjoy it as much as The Way of Water. I think that is still the best. I think this is the weakest of the Avatar film. But overall, if you enjoyed the first 2 films, I think you're going to enjoy this movie. It's definitely a movie you want to see on the big screen, especially in 3D. Unless you hate 3D and don't really want to deal with that mess, I really enjoyed it. But those are my thoughts on Avatar Fire and Ash. Let me know if this is a movie that you guys are excited for, or are you just going to this movie to check out the teaser for Doomsday that has already leaked online. Drop those thoughts in the comments below. We'll catch you guys for the next video.